Sometime this evening, a bagtail was murdered in George Yard.
That doesn't sound much out of the ordinary.
It was the way she was done, Inspector. It was the way that she was done that cries out for a man of your talent.
Well, I can remember seeing like some kind of little documentary on the Ripper case when I was a kid. You know, maybe I was 7 years old or something. Some on like public television, and yeah, just became fascinated with it. And then I've since read, you know, as much as I can get my paws on about the case.
It must be someone with money.
And how do you know that?
This ain't killing for profit. This is ritual.
And it's really fun actually doing something that's based on something in history, because you can really look at that and study that and get a lot of information from that. So actually it's cool to do something based on an actual event.
I saw her face.
Your vision's about me.
Most definitely.
I think it comes from mostly the fact that Jack the Ripper is still a mystery, and it comes with all the imagery too, as far as the costumes and the cobble streets and the gas lights, the fog, all that stuff like that. You know, like Jeffrey Dahmer didn't have all that, and OJ only had a knife, but this is the first killer of this kind that actually had all this gothic kind of setting around him also, and that mystery.
I believe this was done by someone with a working knowledge of dissection.
An educated man? That's preposterous.
Since you know so much about the case, you know obviously that Jack the Ripper, no one's ever identified who it was. How did you feel about it that in this film they do identify Jack the Ripper?
Well, I was familiar with this theory, you know, from other books and other source material, and always thought that it was a pretty strong theory. You know, that it was very, very possible that this kind of thing would have happened in that way.
Throat must have been cut in the carriage. Imagine they stopped it just over there or something.
They? There's more than one then?
Most definitely.
And typically when we hear Jack the Ripper stories, it's through the eyes of the wealthy or an upper class person. We rarely, or if ever, see it through the ghetto people, which is what you play. You play a prostitute.
There was a slum of Whitechapel that everyone was so poor, and just to like get enough money to get through the day, a lot of women had to do that. And actually the Hughes brothers were saying like women that were married and had families and women of all different ages sometimes would turn to the streets just to get themselves through like a hard period, and like that it was actually pretty common.
I want you and your friends off the streets until I can sort this thing out.
I do trust you.
So before in the past, the directors are scared to deal with the fact that they're prostitutes, so they made them showgirls, and to have a chance to, you know, inject as many facts as possible and still create like a entertainment. You know, that's why we did it really.
One day, men will look back and say that I gave birth to the 20th century.
Well, I think it's one of the most accurate lines I've ever heard. Yeah, absolutely. The Ripper case did, in a lot of ways, give birth to the 20th century. As you said, I mean, tabloid journalism was born out of it. A lot of people got rich because of it. It was the first sort of worldwide fascination with a serial killer.